Hello YouTubers and welcome to Mudmax Metal Detecting. Now I did promise you a video of the control box and all the settings for the Goldenmask 5+SE plus a few tests. I'm going to split it into two videos because when I did the tests in the house as well, just a few simple tests, it made the video very long. So I'm just going to dedicate this one to going through the control box. We're going to press all the buttons and we're going to see what you get in the box. And then in a second video, which will be out shortly, we'll actually do the testing in the house. Nothing majorly scientific, just a few tests to have a look at what the machine does. But this one is just about the control box. There'll be links in the video to where you can get this new machine in the UK, all be posted for you so you can follow the links if you want to find out more. Let's get stuck in.
Okay, so let's have a look at the power button, shall we? This is power. Now power basically looks after the gain threshold and the power box settings, and as you can see from the screen there, they're actually shown to you all the time that you detect, so you've got a constant reminder of what you're in for these ones. You go into that, you just press power, there's the power box. Now this has changed on this machine. Press enter because that's one we want to look at. You've now got three settings, and basically what they're saying at Goldenmask is medium is your average soil. So you had your low and your high before, now it's a little bit more refined. So if your soil's bad and the machine's playing up, drop your power box, drop it down to low. Whatever icon is in the middle is what you're on. So yeah, if you're finding the machine a bit unstable, put it on low. And don't forget that just because it's called a power box, it doesn't mean you should always try to run it high, because there are times when high is just going to be too much power. It's a bit like the old saying of having your full beam lights on in fog. All that power in soil where you simply can't use it is just going to make it harder to identify what you want. So that's why you have three settings. So trashy, nasty soil, minerals, things like that, take it down. Nice, calm, easygoing pasture, no EMI in the area, etc, etc, and all kinds of other things, then you might want to be able to pump it up. So there you go. Middle for diddle, factory preset. You set that, you go back in, your plus and minus take you across, so minus back to the middle, and there's your threshold. And there's your factory preset, 25. So far I haven't changed this, but apparently where you've got nice stable soil, you can push this up. Goes up to 30. But again, this is one of those things that really, do I really want to muck about with this? How much am I going to get out of mucking about with it? I suppose there will be the odd occasion where the odd little tweak may make a difference. I'm sure there will be. But in general, on the whole, I'm going to leave that where it is, because I've found the machine is very stable like that, and I like that. And last but by no means least, you've got the gain. Again, just a simple amplification tool. 2 is the highest power. Basically what Goldenmask says, if you want the maximum power for this machine, you put it in 8 kHz, gain on 2 and power box on high. So you kind of get the feeling with the gain and the power box, all these things are about additional signal audio and picking stuff up at depth. But again, gain in 1 is a nice middle for diddle. So until I want to try and run it higher, maybe on quiet pasture or something like that, I'm going to leave it slap bang in the middle. But that's what the gain does. So that is your settings in your first little icon up there on the right, PWR. It's your power settings, and there they are on the screen for you. So that's the first button out of the way. Okay, let's have a look at this button here, shall we? Now that looks like some kind of audio, doesn't it? Yes, you would be right. That's exactly what it is. So taking it over to this side first, minus is left. Volume is simply that. It's the volume of the machine. It's your standard good old-fashioned everyday volume. So let's go into tone. Now at the moment I've got this on, whoops, excuse me, I've got this on wireless, so you can't hear this, and believe me, you don't want to, because this is loud, but this is setting the tone of your good and bad targets. So this is when you're running in the two-tone. So ferrous, your iron, I have that on 0, and that basically means a low tone for iron. You can bump it up if you want. You can do that and the tone goes up. Literally, you'll have to trust me, I'm not turning it on because it's too loud, but it goes do 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 do. So if you want a high tone, For your iron, you can have it high, but I want it as low as I want. I want that ugly blip, blip, blip on the iron. And similarly, you go in and you go into tone and you go to non-ferrous for your good stuff. And as you can see, I've got it on 30. That's the highest tone. So I've got the biggest divide between the two that I can possibly have. And I really like the fact that you can change that on this machine. I love machines that allow you to change the tone of targets, because your hearing is different to mine. Everybody's hearing is different. You might find that on a good target, your ears respond best at 24. That tone might just suit you. You could have some kind of hearing issue on certain tones. The fact that you've got that kind of changeability so that you can get the actual tone, the sound, exactly where you want it. I love that on machines, because hearing tones is what it's all about. And the fact that you can set up how high those tones are or how low those tones are is absolutely brilliant. Right, okay, so let's go in again. And let's go across to iron volume. Now, iron volume is quite simple. It is just that. It's the volume of the iron. If you're hunting along in two-tone and you want to hear the iron and you've got it on 7, the iron will be very loud. If there's lots of it, that might get on your nerves. So you drop it down to about 3. Now you can still hear the iron, but it's a calmer background tone to your good tone. And I love running machines like that, simply because I'm still hearing the iron, but the good targets are going to stand out because they're going to be louder. They're going to have that powerful kick with the iron just bubbling away in the background. So it's telling me what the ground's like, but the good targets are going to stand out more. You can, of course, take it right down if you want. You can 0 it, but you might as well run in one tone then, really. But if you're in 2 tones and you put it on 3, it's just nicely in the background. So there you go. That explains that button. Okay, just very, very quickly, on-off. Now, when you press on-off in the field, you have this coil well away from anything. I'm in the house, it's on the floor so that I can film, but you have it, it's a couple of feet away from anything really, and not pointing at any EMI, because the machine does do a reset. But you hold it down just for a couple of seconds, and on she comes. And as you can see there, it's done reset. So there you go. Getting a bit of flicker off my camera, sorry about that. Okay, so let's come across to ground balance then, shall we? And let's show you that. Excuse me. There you go, ground balance. You've got auto and you've got manual. I only use auto at the moment. I know manual is supposed to be a little bit better, but basically auto, you press enter on auto, pump up and down, and the machine will tell you when it's balanced. With manual, you press enter, you pump up and down, and you move the up and down keys to change the numbers until you like the balance of sound or lack of sound to know you've balanced it how you want it. So auto is if you want the machine to do it for you. Manual is if you want to use your own ears and fine tune it the way you like it. Simple as that. Okay, let's have a look at disc mode and disc level, shall we? Just press that down. Okay. Now, this is an interesting one. I'm going to do disc mode first, because that's the easier of the two to explain, to be honest. Disc mode is basically the mode that you run the machine in. And you've got 3 choices. You've got 2, which is bitonal. So you're going to hear all the iron signals that are in the iron range. And we'll come on to the iron range at the end. That's quite easy. Mono just means you're going to hear the good targets. It's going to discriminate. Whatever level of discrimination you've got on, it's going to discriminate, but you won't hear what it discriminates as iron. It's not going to tell you. So that's for a peaceful life, basically. That's just hearing your good tones. That's hearing them both. And that's hearing all the tones, all the targets as one single tone. And you then use the main screen and the main lines across here to tell you, plus of course the number that comes up here, to tell you what you've got. Now that is supposed to be the deepest of all the settings, and as you can see, something's it's picking something up now. So that is supposed to be the deepest of all the settings. Generally speaking, I like to hear the iron, and I sacrifice a tiny bit of that depth on most of my land, and I like to run in 2. I like to hear the iron, but of course you can always go back over the same area with a slightly deeper search mode if you want. So that is basically your 3 search modes. Just the good targets, both, or all sounding the same for slightly more depth. Now disc depth, this is a funny one, because what Goldenmask say is disc depth, the default is 8. Now I'm not going to move it from 8 very often, but apparently if you take the disc depth down, right down like that, you miss shallow targets, but you get greater discrimination and greater positive signals at depth. So if you're going over an area and you really want to find the deep targets, the idea is that you're sacrificing the stuff nearer the top to get a better identification on stuff further down. So some people on some sites might like that, but personally I don't want to miss what's under the coil. So the default is 8, and that's kind of, again, middle for diddle. The machine and the discrimination are working as one in harmony. Now what I will say though, and the manual does say this, is if you want to find the goodies in the higher levels, so if we're talking ploughed land, where the land's just been turned over and there's a bit of trash, and you want to work fast amongst the trash in the top few inches, then you will take it up. Now when you take it up, you will sacrifice depth, but the discrimination and the speed of the machine around the rubbish will be better. So if you're on trashy ploughed land and you just want stuff, or you want the machine to perform best on stuff in the first few inches and pick it out, that puts up the recovery speed, but it does take out a little bit of the depth. So again, it's one of those things. Average soil, average day, leave it in the middle. If you just want the shallow targets in amongst the scrap, turn it into a fast workhorse in the upper layers. And occasionally you might be somebody who wants to come right down, ignore the stuff underneath the coil, and try and get better target ID on the real deep stuff. So that's a search conditions one. Again, it's only a tweak, but obviously it will enhance the machine in certain conditions. Average stuff, leave it in the middle. Okay, that's the disc mode and disc level. Right, let's come along to kilohertz, shall we? Let's press that. And this is about as simple as it can get, really. You've got 18 kilohertz and you've got 8 kilohertz. Move it over, choose which one you want. There's a little click from the machine because it's changing frequency, and away you go. Now when you enter it, it will bring you up that. This is a frequency shift. So it's a shift within 18 kilohertz. You've got 4 there, and that's just if you've got EMI, if you've got interference from other machines. You've got 4 slight shifts on the 18 kilohertz as you have with the 8, so that you can find which one suits your area best. Try and get the most smooth running out if there is a bit of interference in the area. But that's it really. That's all that is. It's your 2 settings. It's your 8 kilohertz and your 18 kilohertz. Goldenmask do say that for the optimum depth on this machine, you run gain at 2, you run power box high, and you run the frequency on 8 kilohertz. So just by listening to that, you get an idea of what the machine, what gain and power box do, obviously. But I think we've covered that already. Right, there's one more thing to show you, and I'm going to do that in one last clip. Right, one thing that you may have thought as I've gone through all that is, where's good old-fashioned discrimination? On a lot of machines, you have discrimination, you put it up to 10, you put it up to whatever you want. Well, the discrimination on this is that black line there. So set at 0, it's going to discriminate iron. You don't go into any menus for this, it's in the front page. If I press the up button, you will see that I'm plussing the discrimination, and that black bar is moving across foil. Now if I put this on plus 15, I am going to miss some good targets, no question about it. But as you can see, that black bar is saying, okay, you want strong discrimination, I'm coming into the foil range. There will be some people on certain sites who will want to set the machine like that to try and knock out stuff, and they will accept that they're going to sacrifice the odd good target, but they might have to. They might even do that simply because they're going for specific targets and they might want to take it right up and just get the high conductors. So all that is now in the reject range, and you do that straight in the front menu. So that's kind of like your normal discrimination. Me personally, I'm probably going to have it. Now you think I'm going to say, oh, middle for diddle, he's going to have it middle for diddle. But actually, some of the time I will, but especially on my Roman sites, I think I'm going to minus it a little bit. Maybe down to about -5. So the slight iron buzzy, you know, kind of thing, I want to get the more positive on that. I want less discrim, because I believe that, and I know some of the targets that I get on the Roman sites, they are a little bit irony. And if I can lessen that a little bit and let them come through, I think they're worth digging. So if you do take that down, you're really going into dig all territory now. So it's not quite all metal, but you are really lessening the amount that's going to go into the iron range. The absolute iron, anything else is going to come through as a good signal. So you set that up as you want, but that's a fine tuning, and it's a bit like your good old-fashioned discrimination. Practically is, really, but I actually think it's quite a nice way of doing it. Okay, I'm going to get a couple of targets for you now, and I'm going to show you how this range works when you hit a signal. Okay, let's have a look at a couple of targets, shall we? As you can see here, I've got a little Roman attached to the end of a stick. Let's see what happens when little Roman goes over the coil. Lifting it up. Now when all those lines went across, I actually hit the coil cable, but as you can see, a little Roman, well and truly in the good target range, in the copper range. So there we go. Let's try a bit of iron, shall we? Okay, look at that. Nice big chunk of rusty iron. Let's see how we get on with this, shall we? Now you see how you get a few little flicks along the foil, nickel, copper and silver, but you get predominant iron. And you've got both tones there. It's because it's a big piece of iron, but you know that that's iron. Because that graph is showing it predominantly in the iron range. So you know it's a bigger piece. You're getting both sounds, but it's a bigger piece. If I go a little bit closer, it becomes the pure iron tone. Almost. So it's really trying to completely discriminate that as iron. It is starting to get fooled, but that piece is not going to fool you. Let's try a small piece of iron and see what happens. Okay, now I said smaller piece of iron. It's a fairly substantial paper clip, but it's a lot thinner, typical of the kind of bits of steel wire and bits of metal you can get in the ground that you really don't want. So let's come across, see what we get. There's no doubt about that. You're not digging that, are you? I do love this graphic. I really do love it. If I'm getting the iron here and the foil and the nickel and the copper, and it's rolling between the lot and it's quite even, I'm digging it. Because if it's quite even, then yeah, it could be really big iron, it could be something else. I've still got to learn with this machine, so I don't know exactly how many of those I would dig at the moment. But if it's predominantly in the foil and the nickel and occasionally going in the iron, certainly I'm going to dig those, because I think a lot of the Romans might come up a bit like that. You get quite dirty signals with the Romans sometimes. So you might get a little bit of iron in there, a little bit of foil nickel along the mid-range. I don't know yet. We'll see when we're in the field a bit more. But that's kind of how I see me judging this. If it's like it was on those two pieces, then obviously I know that's iron. Biggish pieces. I still know it's iron. The machine's telling me. So there you go. That's just a quick, very quick example of how this sliding scale of conductors works and how it can help you in the field.
Okay, so there we go. That's the control box for the Goldenmask 5+SE. I hope you enjoyed that. It won't be for every YouTuber that looks at my channel, but for those of you that are interested, there it is. Right, in the next one, we're going to do a few very simple tests. Nothing too scientific, but just a few little tests, just to give you an idea of what changing the sum of the settings does, just to give you a flavour for the machine. Okay, until then, good luck, happy hunting, and I'll see you soon.